A tent in the Central Asian steppes. Inside, a dying prince faces the most important decision of his life: who will inherit his territories, his armies, his legacy. The year is 1301, and Kaidu, one of the most powerful Mongol rulers, is preparing to name his successor. By every metric that Mongol culture values, the choice is obvious. One of his children has fought in more campaigns than any other. One has demonstrated tactical genius on the battlefield. One has his complete trust and has served as his closest advisor for decades. One has never been defeated in wrestling, the ultimate test of Mongol worthiness. One possesses every quality a ruler needs: courage, intelligence, strategic brilliance, and the absolute loyalty of the warriors who serve under them. That person is Khutulun, his daughter. And Kaidu knows, even as he makes the politically necessary choice to name one of his sons as heir, that he is making a mistake. He is denying power to the most qualified person because that person is a woman. This is the story of how merit lost to prejudice, how the Mongol Empire was deprived of potentially its greatest ruler, and how one woman's exclusion from power reveals the limits of what individual excellence can achieve within unjust systems. How did the princess who should have ruled the empire end up as a footnote in history? The Mongol Empire in the late 13th century was fracturing. Genghis Khan's unified vision had given way to competing power centers, with different branches of his family controlling different territories and pursuing different policies. Kublai Khan, Khutulun's grandfather, ruled China from Beijing, having established the Yuan dynasty and embracing Chinese administrative sophistication. But not everyone agreed with this direction. Kaidu, Khutulun's father, controlled vast territories in Central Asia and rejected Kublai's Sinicization of Mongol culture. He believed that adopting Chinese customs and settling into urban governance betrayed the nomadic warrior traditions that had made the Mongols great. For 3 decades, Kaidu waged war against Kublai's forces, maintaining an independent power base and challenging the legitimacy of the Yuan dynasty. This was not a minor border dispute. This was a fundamental conflict over the identity and future direction of the Mongol Empire. Would it remain true to its steppe warrior roots, or would it transform into a sedentary agrarian empire? Kaidu represented the traditionalist position, and he needed commanders who understood and embodied the warrior values he was fighting to preserve. He found his best commander in his daughter. From childhood, Khutulun was immersed in the warrior culture that defined Mongol identity. She learned to ride before she could properly walk, her small body strapped to horses as Mongol children had been for generations. She learned archery, spending years developing the muscle memory and timing required to shoot accurately from horseback at full gallop. She learned wrestling, the sport that was also combat training, that taught leverage, balance, and how to quickly subdue an opponent. But learning these skills was common among Mongol youth. What set Khutulun apart was her mastery. By adolescence, she was better than her brothers. By young adulthood, she was better than most adult warriors. By the time she reached full maturity, she was recognized as one of the finest wrestlers in the entire empire. Not the finest woman wrestler. The finest wrestler, period. She defeated champion after champion, men who had trained their entire lives, who had never known defeat, who carried reputations as invincible. She made it look easy, and in doing so, she humiliated not just individuals but the assumptions underlying male supremacy. Her wrestling challenge became legendary. Any man who wanted to marry her had to defeat her first. If he won, she would become his wife. If he lost, he forfeited 100 horses. This was not a small wager. Horses were wealth, power, and prestige in Mongol society. 100 horses represented a fortune. But more than economics was at stake. Every man who challenged Khutulun was gambling his reputation, his honor, his public standing as a warrior. And they lost. Hundreds of them, according to accounts from the period. Generals who commanded armies. Champions from across the empire. Nobles who believed their status would intimidate her. They all found themselves on their backs, staring at the sky, their assumptions shattered along with their pride. Khutulun accumulated thousands of horses through these victories, becoming one of the wealthiest individuals in the empire. But the horses were never really the point. Each victory was a political statement, a public demonstration that the natural order placing men above women was actually artificial and breakable. Each defeated challenger was evidence that gender did not determine capability, that women could compete with men and win if given the opportunity and training. But Khutulun's significance extended far beyond wrestling. She was a military commander of extraordinary ability. She fought in dozens of campaigns alongside her father, leading cavalry charges, engaging in personal combat, and providing tactical advice that Kaidu consistently relied upon. Contemporary accounts describe her riding into enemy formations, seizing captive soldiers as easily as a hawk takes a chicken, and delivering them to her father's forces. This is not metaphorical language. This is description of actual combat performance that witnesses found remarkable enough to record. She fought in the vanguard, not the rear. She took personal risks that killed lesser warriors. She demonstrated courage under fire that earned the respect of battle-hardened soldiers who had no ideological commitment to respecting female warriors but who could not deny what they witnessed with their own eyes. Her father appointed her to command positions not as a gesture or symbol but because she was the best person available. In a military culture where incompetence meant death, where battles were won or lost based on the quality of leadership, Kaidu could not afford tokenism. He gave Khutulun command because she delivered results. As Kaidu aged and the question of succession became urgent, the advantages of naming Khutulun as heir were overwhelming. She had proven herself in every way Mongol culture valued. She was an undefeated wrestler, demonstrating physical prowess. She was a successful military commander, demonstrating tactical ability. She was her father's trusted advisor, demonstrating political judgment. She understood her father's vision and shared his commitment to preserving nomadic warrior culture. She commanded the loyalty of the warriors who had fought under her leadership. She was known and respected throughout the territories Kaidu controlled. By every rational measure, she was the most qualified heir. Kaidu himself apparently recognized this. Historical accounts suggest he wanted to name her his successor, that he saw in her everything a ruler needed. But he faced immovable opposition. The tribal leaders, generals, and nobles who would have to accept her rule refused. A woman as supreme ruler was too radical even for the relatively egalitarian Mongols. The very men she had defeated in wrestling, the generals she had fought beside, the nobility who had witnessed her superiority, would not accept her as their sovereign. The politics of this refusal reveal the complex intersection of capability and systemic discrimination. No one questioned Khutulun's abilities. Her excellence was too obvious to deny. But excellence within certain roles did not translate into acceptance for the ultimate position of power. She could be a commander, an advisor, even a celebrated wrestler. But she could not be Khan. This distinction, between acknowledging capability and granting authority, is crucial for understanding how systems of oppression function. They do not require denying that women are capable. They only require maintaining that certain positions must remain male regardless of capability. This allows the system to point to women's achievements in subordinate roles as evidence of fairness while still reserving ultimate power for men. Khutulun's case exposes this mechanism perfectly. Her supporters could celebrate her achievements, honor her as a warrior, acknowledge her superiority to male competitors, and still refuse her succession because the Khanate itself was defined as male space that even the most exceptional woman could not enter. Kaidu was forced to choose between his preferred heir and political stability. If he named Khutulun and the tribal leaders refused to accept her, civil war was likely. His territories would fragment. Everything he had fought for would collapse into chaos. But if he named a less qualified son, the succession would be accepted and stability maintained. It was an impossible choice, and Kaidu made the pragmatic decision. He named one of his sons as heir. The historical record doesn't tell us how Khutulun responded to this, whether she fought the decision, accepted it with grace, or felt betrayed by the father who had elevated her in every other way. We don't know if she understood the impossible political position Kaidu faced or if she felt he should have chosen principle over pragmatism. What we know is that she was denied power she had earned, that merit was subordinated to gender, that the empire lost the opportunity to be led by potentially its most capable ruler because that ruler was a woman. The succession crisis that followed Kaidu's death in 1301 suggests that choosing political stability over merit may not have worked as intended. Kaidu's chosen heir faced challenges and rebellions. The territories fragmented anyway. The political unity that was supposedly preserved by excluding Khutulun collapsed shortly after Kaidu's death. This raises a painful counterfactual: would Khutulun have been a more effective ruler than the son who actually inherited? Would her proven military ability and political acumen have better navigated the challenges that followed? We cannot know, but the possibility that the empire sacrificed a great ruler for the sake of prejudice, and then didn't even achieve the stability that supposedly justified that sacrifice, is a bitter irony. Systems of discrimination often justify exclusion by claiming that including the excluded would create problems. But frequently, the real problems come from the exclusion itself, from denying power to capable people and granting it to less qualified ones solely because they belong to the privileged group. After Kaidu's death, Khutulun's story becomes frustratingly vague. Some sources suggest she continued to serve as a military commander under her brother. Others claim she died shortly after her father, possibly in battle. The records are incomplete and contradictory. What is certain is that she never ruled the territories she had helped her father expand and defend. She never received the position her capabilities merited. She was denied not through personal failure but through systemic exclusion, and then history compounded that injustice by failing to preserve her story with the care it deserved. Male rulers and generals of far less accomplishment have their lives documented in detail. Khutulun, one of the 13th century's most formidable warriors, fades from the historical record shortly after being denied succession. This is not coincidental. This is how historical erasure operates. When someone challenges dominant narratives, their story is simply not preserved with the same thoroughness as those whose stories reinforce what people want to believe. The fact that Khutulun's story survived at all is remarkable and largely attributable to Marco Polo, whose account of his travels through the Mongol Empire included descriptions of her wrestling prowess and military capabilities. But even Marco Polo's testimony was insufficient to secure her a prominent place in historical memory. For centuries, she remained known primarily to specialists in Mongol history, absent from the broader historical narratives taught in schools and presented to general audiences. Only in recent decades has her story begun to receive wider attention, and even now, most people have never heard of her. The contrast with male Mongol rulers and generals is stark. Genghis Khan, Kublai Khan, even relatively minor male figures from Mongol history, these names are widely known. Khutulun, who defeated hundreds of warriors and commanded armies in dozens of campaigns, remains obscure. This is not an accident. This is the result of centuries of decisions about whose stories were worth teaching and whose could be safely forgotten. The question of what Mongol history would have looked like with Khutulun as ruler is impossible to answer definitively, but we can make educated speculations based on what we know of her abilities and priorities. She was deeply committed to preserving nomadic warrior culture, like her father. She understood military affairs intimately, having participated in warfare for decades. She had demonstrated political acumen in serving as her father's advisor. She commanded respect from warriors who had fought under her. These qualities suggest she would have been a formidable ruler, potentially more successful than the male relatives who actually inherited power. But beyond speculation about what she might have accomplished, there's a more fundamental point: she deserved the opportunity. She had earned it. The fact that she was denied that opportunity solely because of her gender is an injustice that cannot be justified by appeals to political necessity or cultural norms. It was wrong then, and recognizing it as wrong now is essential to understanding how systems of gender discrimination operate and how they rob societies of the contributions of capable people. Her exclusion from succession also reveals something important about the limits of the Mongol Empire's relative gender egalitarianism. Mongol women had rights and status that women in many other contemporary societies lacked. They could own property, divorce, participate in certain political processes, and exercise influence in ways that would have been impossible in medieval Europe or China. But this relative egalitarianism had limits. Women could be powerful within certain boundaries, but ultimate sovereignty remained male. Khutulun's case exposes that boundary. She could do everything a male heir could do, prove herself superior to male competitors, earn her father's confidence and warriors' respect, and still be excluded from the ultimate position of power. This pattern repeats throughout history. Societies that grant women more rights and opportunities than their neighbors often still maintain core structures of male supremacy. Relative progress is real but can obscure ongoing fundamental inequalities. Khutulun benefited from Mongol culture's openness to female participation in martial activities, but she was still ultimately constrained by its insistence that supreme political authority must be male. The tragedy of Khutulun's story is not just personal but historical. The Mongol Empire lost the opportunity to be led by an exceptional ruler. We lost the chance to see what she would have accomplished, how she might have shaped history, what innovations she might have introduced. And the specific lesson her exclusion could have taught about the costs of gender discrimination was obscured by her subsequent erasure from historical memory. If her story had been widely known and taught, it could have served as a clear example of how prejudice denies societies the full benefit of their human capital, how excluding people based on gender rather than merit is not just unjust but economically and politically costly. But because her story was suppressed, this lesson was lost for centuries. Only now, as we recover her legacy, can we begin to understand what her exclusion cost, not just her personally but everyone who would have benefited from her leadership. What would it have been like to be Khutulun, standing on the edge of power, knowing you deserved it, having proven yourself superior to the men who would ultimately be chosen instead? The psychological weight of that must have been crushing. To have done everything right, exceeded every expectation, demonstrated excellence beyond question, and still be told that your gender disqualifies you, this is a wound that never fully heals. Many women throughout history have faced this same situation in different contexts, being the most qualified for a position but losing it to a less capable man, seeing their work attributed to male colleagues, watching men advance based on potential while women are held to standards of proven performance. Khutulun's experience was an early and dramatic example of a pattern that continues today. Her story resonates not just because of its historical significance but because the dynamic it reveals, merit denied due to prejudice, remains painfully relevant. The alternative history where Khutulun became Khan is tantalizing to contemplate. How would she have governed? What policies would she have pursued? How would she have navigated the ongoing conflict between traditionalist and reformist factions within the empire? Would she have eventually reconciled with Kublai, or would the conflict have continued? How would male subordinates have responded to female supreme authority? Would she have faced constant challenges and rebellions, or would her proven capabilities have commanded respect? Would her reign have inspired other women to pursue power, potentially changing gender dynamics throughout the empire? We can never know the answers to these questions, but asking them is valuable. It forces us to recognize that history is not inevitable, that different choices would have produced different outcomes, that the world we inherited was shaped by specific decisions including the decision to exclude capable women from power. Understanding this contingency is crucial for recognizing that present inequalities are also not inevitable, that they too result from choices and can be changed through different choices. Her legacy survives today primarily through recovered historical memory and cultural celebration in Mongolia and Central Asia, where she has become a symbol of female strength and capability. Her story is taught more widely now than it was 50 or 100 years ago, though still not as widely as it deserves. She appears in popular culture, in films and novels and graphic narratives, though these presentations often emphasize romantic or exotic elements rather than her political significance. But even imperfect attention represents progress from the centuries of near-total obscurity. Each person who learns her story, who shares it with others, who insists that it deserves a place in historical education, contributes to the ongoing work of undoing erasure and restoring her to her rightful place in history. The question this documentary poses, why Khutulun should have ruled the Mongol Empire, has a straightforward answer: because she was the most qualified. She had proven herself in every way that mattered. She possessed the skills, experience, judgment, and support necessary for effective rule. The only argument against her succession was her gender, and that is not an argument about capability but about prejudice. She should have ruled because merit should determine leadership, and by the standards of merit, she was clearly superior. That she didn't rule represents a failure of the system, not a reflection on her. And that failure cost the empire dearly, depriving it of leadership it desperately needed and demonstrating that even relatively egalitarian societies can sacrifice excellence on the altar of gender discrimination. If there is a lesson for today in Khutulun's story, it is this: systems that exclude based on gender, race, or other arbitrary characteristics do not just harm the excluded. They harm everyone by depriving society of the contributions of capable people. Every time a qualified woman is denied leadership in favor of a less qualified man, we repeat Khutulun's story. Every time potential is ignored because it comes packaged in the wrong body, we lose the benefits that potential could have delivered. Khutulun's exclusion from succession didn't just hurt her. It hurt everyone who would have benefited from her leadership, everyone in the empire whose lives would have been different under a more capable ruler. The costs of discrimination compound across time and scale, creating losses that dwarf whatever comfort the privileged derive from maintaining their exclusive access to power. Understanding this is essential to building systems that actually reward merit rather than maintaining hierarchies based on characteristics irrelevant to capability. As this story concludes, the question shifts from what happened to what happens next. You know now that Khutulun should have ruled the Mongol Empire, that she was denied not through any personal failing but through systemic injustice, and that her story was then largely erased from historical memory. What will you do with this knowledge? Will you share it, helping to ensure that more people learn about her and understand the lessons her exclusion teaches? Will you look for patterns of similar exclusion in your own contexts, where capable people are denied opportunities because of characteristics that shouldn't matter? Will you work to ensure that the institutions you're part of actually evaluate people based on capability rather than on demographic categories? Will you question other historical narratives, asking who else was written out and why? The recovery of Khutulun's legacy depends on people making these choices, on individuals deciding that historical truth matters, that suppressed stories deserve telling, that the next generation deserves better than the partial, biased histories previous generations received. The princess who should have ruled the Mongol Empire stands as evidence of both women's capabilities and the systems designed to suppress them. She proved that gender does not determine leadership ability, that women can match or exceed men in any field when given opportunity and training. But she also proved that individual excellence, no matter how extraordinary, cannot always overcome systemic barriers, that merit alone is insufficient when prejudice structures access to power. Both lessons matter. The first shows what's possible. The second shows what remains to be changed. Khutulun's story is incomplete until the systems that denied her are fully dismantled, until capability truly determines opportunity, until the next Khutulun doesn't face the choice between proving herself exceptional or accepting subordination. That work continues, and each person who learns her story inherits responsibility for carrying it forward. Honor her memory not just by remembering but by acting, by refusing to accept in your own time the injustices she faced in hers, by building a world where the answer to who should lead is always the most capable person, with no qualifiers, no exclusions, no barriers based on anything other than actual ability to do the work. That is the empire Khutulun should have ruled, and it is the world we must build in her memory.